Okay, so this is gonna be my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I kind of made this both to serve as like a time capsule for myself in the future, just to kind of see like what I was into in film when I was 21, to serve maybe as a recommendation list for anyone who watches if they want to check any of these out. I think they're absolutely amazing. You might disagree. I decided to go with one film per director and just rank them in alphabetical order just to make it easier on myself. I think it's kind of impossible to compare these films one to the other. So the first movie on the list, in alphabetical order, is Burn After Reading from the Coen brothers. This is an absolutely fantastic dark comedy, a character drama taking place between all these very distinguished, very recognizable characters, kind of interacting with each other and creating drama just through the colliding of their respective universes. It leans very much into absurdity, which I think is something that the Coen brothers have often been known to do. They're almost a little ahead of their time in that way. I knew I wanted to have a Coen brothers movie on here. I absolutely loved No Country for Old Men growing up, but for the sake of the list, I also really wanted to get a comedy in here, and among their comedies, I think this is the absolute best. It probably still is my favorite film of theirs overall. I just absolutely love it. Brad Pitt, especially.
You don't found like this CD just lying in a locker floor, ladies' locker.
Just lying there.
I'm like, what, someone's music or what? And I come in here and it's these files, man.
I'm not comfortable with this.
Talking about SIG-int and signals and shit, and signals means code, you know?
He was just lying there.
Talking here about department heads and their names and shit. And then there's these other files that are just like numbers arrayed. Numbers and dates and numbers and numbers and dates and numbers, and I think that's the shit, man.
Next on the list is A Clockwork Orange by Stanley Kubrick. I knew I wanted to get a Kubrick film in here, and of all his films, I think this is the one that stuck with me the longest. I remember I watched it first in high school, and at that time I thought it was almost kind of crude and gratuitous. I think there was something very palpable about the tone and atmosphere of this movie. It's built into the Beethoven score throughout and the musicality of some of the performances, especially in the fight scenes or even some of the assault scenes for that matter. Not to mention the strange slang that they speak with in this film, kind of a mix of Old English and Shakespearean. I personally just really like it. Almost like an antithesis to 1984's dystopian. This one is ruled by total chaos and anarchy. It touches on how Alex is a reflection of the environment he's brought up in, and the environment is a reflection of the people who run it and create it. In a lot of ways, it's very cynical and pessimistic, but I think it's also telling us a lot of things that we need to hear, and it's still very relevant today. I absolutely love it.
There was me, that is Alex, and my three droogs, that is Pete, Georgie, and Dim. And we sat in the Korova milk bar trying to make up our razoo dogs what to do with the evening. The Korova milk bar sold Milk Plus Velocet, or Synthemesk, or Drencrum, which is what we were drinking. This would sharpen you up and make you ready for a bit of the old ultra-violence.
Is a Canadian film, Dead Ringers, directed by David Cronenberg. This stars Jeremy Irons in the two leading roles of Elliot and Beverly, twin brothers who are also gynecologists, who begin to practice some rather strange and taboo sexual and also orthopedic behaviors. The film is very terrifying, even though it's not entirely surreal. It does at times feel that way, and it does also resonate with me on a psychological level with its themes of persona and personality, the blurring of the lines between two people. It is certainly not for the weak of stomach, I will say. Very, very creepy at times, but I do think it's worth watching.
Get away!
Jesus Christ, Beverly.
I gotta slow everything down. I need something to slow everything down.
Oh my God, she's bleeding.
Get a client, for God's sake. Get him the hell out of here!
Next on the list is a Lars von Trier film, Dogville. I knew I wanted to have one of Lars's works on here. I think he, as a filmmaker, has represented a big chunk of my experience with film. My relationship with his work has kind of evolved over the years. This one, I think, is probably my favorite of his films. It's certainly very on the nose, even in its gimmicky presentation with the whole stage, painted line, village setting. It definitely wears its metaphors right on its sleeve, but I don't really mind that all that much. So I think it's very smartly done and very emotionally resonant, most of all, which is, I think, what Lars is really good at. There's a particular scene that takes place between Stellan Skarsgård and Nicole Kidman, which will always stick with me. I think it's very, very gruesome and terrifying, but also very emblematic of the theme within the film about exploitation.
Tom's father had been a doctor and now received a modest pension, so it was no great disaster for Tom to drift about not doing anything in particular. Tom was a writer, at any rate by his own lights. Oh, his output as committed to paper was so far limited to the words great and small, followed by a question mark, but nevertheless meticulously archived in one of his many bureau drawers.
Hi, Dad.
Next on the list is Park Chan-wook's Old Boy. This is another director who I kind of figured one of his films would make it onto the list when I was originally putting it together. In my opinion, it's the best anime adaptation that's ever been put to live action. It's so well made. It really balances that over-the-top, vengeful melodrama with the inherent comedy of a lot of the situations. I do think the movie is inherently comedic. It's this amazing action movie at its core, again with some very, very melodramatic elements, almost Shakespearean elements in a way, in terms of thrillers. The twists and turns keep you just right on the edge of your seat in the first viewing, and then in subsequent viewings you just get to appreciate the tightly wound nature of the actual story. Park Chan-wook is the master of the thriller genre. He truly has no equal. Next on the list is Persona, directed by Ingmar Bergman. This is the oldest movie on my list. Typically I go with more contemporary picks. I figured it would probably be quite academic, and it is certainly relatively academic, but I do think it's more approachable than I gave it credit for. More just the interpersonal drama with some very artistic visual elements. I think it mirrors some of the themes of like Dead Ringers, for example, in a lot of ways, but it also has the kind of classic Bergman trope of pinning the older, more sexually repressive female character against the open-minded and sexually promiscuous younger woman. I really enjoy how he plays with those dynamics as well, and a great companion piece to Camille Paglia's sexual personae.
Så plötsligt fick jag se två figurer som hoppade omkring på klipporna alldeles ovanför oss. Du gömde sig och kikade fram ibland. Det är två pojkar som tittar på oss, att den där flickan. Hon heter Katarina. Ja, låt dem titta då, sa hon. Och vände sig om på rygg. Det var så en underlig känsla.
Next on my list, a director who borrowed a lot from Bergman, Michel Haneke, and his film The Piano Teacher. In this case, it more so equates to a sexual relationship between an older piano teacher who is sexually repressed by her mother and a younger, more enthusiastic and perhaps naive man who pursues her, resulting in what I can only describe as a truly psychopathic relationship, which kind of dwells on the animalistic nature of sex and also questions what exactly constitutes consent. I've really been getting into Haneke lately, and I love his style. It's so organic and naturalistic in a way. He chooses, for example, to only include music which exists within the diegesis of the movie, or within the movie's universe. So whenever there's like piano music in this movie, it's played by the actors, which, by the way, they're all phenomenal piano players, and I love the ambiguity of the ending. It's truly haunting in a way.
J'ai donc décidé de laisser tomber Schoenberg et de jouer à la place mon morceau préféré de Schubert, le scherzo de la sonate en la majeur.
Next on the list is Hayao Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke. This has been one of my favorite movies, probably since middle school, maybe high school. There's something almost kind of comforting about it in retrospect. It's definitely become one of those movies that I put on in order to feel better or to give me that burst of nostalgia. I don't think there's anything that hits me quite in the same place as this. Something about the score of the film, which is just so beautiful. I love Miyazaki's art style. But on another level, I really appreciate the moral fiber of the movie, the way that both San and Lady Eboshi are kind of painted as these opposites representing two sides of the environmental problem which the film is tackling. But it doesn't really paint either one as the objective villain of the story. In this way, they kind of let Ashitaka be this moral middle ground, this gray area, and kind of represent the stance against conflict itself.
There's a demon inside of you. It's inside both of you. Look, everyone! This is what hatred looks like. This is what it does when it catches hold of you. It's eating me alive, and very soon now it will kill me. Fear and anger only make it grow faster.
I'm getting a little bored of this curse of yours, Ashitaka. Let me just cut the damn thing off!
Next on the list is Charlie Kaufman's Synaptic in New York, his first film as a director. I think if I had to choose one film which I would say is my all-time favorite at the moment, it would have to be Synaptic in New York. I don't think any other writer resonates with me quite like Charlie Kaufman does, and especially in this movie. He gets really meta with it in this one, which I think is what I love about it most, just how complex, layered, and technically proficient the script is. It makes you ponder life in a way that few films really do. Its central theme all kind of about the danger of writing a narrative about life which only exists within the framework of your own mind. I love the music, for another thing. John Bryan composed the score, and Charlie Kaufman wrote the lyrics for all the songs within the narrative himself, some of which are hauntingly beautiful. The scene which takes place within the red light district is one that legitimately made me tear up the first time I saw it. It's tragic beyond comparison in my mind.
God
Oh, wait. Mommy, Daddy has blood. Yeah.
And last but not least, we have Todd Field's Tar. This is obviously the most recent film to be released, which is on my list. It came out just last year. It feels very kind of objective and precise, a lot like Haneke's work does. At its core, I think the movie has a lot to say, especially about, the pressure of trying to create perfection or mastery in an art, the way Tar does, and how that drives her not only to a certain kind of psychosis, but also kind of ruins the relationships around her because she fails to form real, vulnerable connections with other people in favor of intellectualizing reality. She also faces reputational destruction, and this is a theme that comes up time and time again. To what extent the artist's personal behaviors should influence our view of their works in retrospect. Cate Blanchett blows it out of the water, just a fantastic performance from her.
You play really well. But nowadays, white, male, cis composers, just not my thing.
Don't be so eager to be offended. The narcissism of small differences leads to the most boring conformity.
I guess Edgar Varese is okay. I mean, no, like, Arcana, anyway.
Oh, well, then you must be aware that Varese once famously stated that jazz was a Negro product exploited by the Jews. Didn't stop Jerry Goldsmith from ripping him off for his Planet of the Apes score. It's kind of a perfect insult, don't you think? But you see, the problem with enrolling yourself as an ultrasonic epistemic dissident is that if Bach's talent can be reduced to his gender, birth country, religion, sexuality, and so on, then so can yours.
Those are my 10 favorite films. I hope you enjoyed the list. I hope you decide to check some of these out if they sound like they would appeal to you. Enjoyed making this. I enjoyed getting to go through some movies that I really appreciate and trying to articulate exactly why to the best of my ability. I hope you enjoyed it too.